Winter 1918 had barely passed when General John J. Pershing sent a simple but urgent request to America's greatest gunsmith. The Great War had revealed a terrifying new enemy, the armored machine. Tanks, armored cars, and aircraft had changed the battlefield forever. Pershing wanted a weapon powerful enough to pierce steel and bring down planes, something far beyond the small rifle calibers of the day. The message reached John Moses Browning, a man already celebrated for the Colt 1911 pistol and the .30 caliber M1917 machine gun. Pershing's challenge ignited a spark that would eventually create one of the most feared weapons in history, the Browning .50 caliber machine gun. Browning began scaling up his proven short recoil system. The result was the M1921 prototype, an enormous water-cooled beast chambered in a brand new cartridge, the .50 BMG, or 12.7 by 99 millimeters. It fired a half-inch bullet at velocities exceeding 2,800 feet per second, nearly double the power of most infantry rounds of the era. It wasn't just a machine gun, it was artillery in miniature. Early tests showed it could chew through concrete, armorplate, and aircraft engines with terrifying ease. But Browning's heavy machine gun arrived too late for World War I. Browning himself would never see it perfected. He died in 1926. Yet his design lived on. Colt and the U.S. Ordnance Department continued to refine it throughout the interwar years, transforming the M1921 into the lighter, more efficient M2 model. The new version could be air-cooled, adapted to vehicles, or mounted on aircraft. It could feed from either side thanks to a universal receiver, and its short recoil action proved reliable under mud, sand, and frost alike. By the late 1930s, the M2 was entering widespread production. Few could imagine that this heavy, thunderous weapon would soon define American firepower across every battlefield on Earth. It was heavy, slow to carry, and brutal to shoot, but it never jammed when soldiers needed it most. Its voice was deep, rhythmic, and unmistakable. The troops would soon give it a nickname that carried both affection and awe: Ma Deuce. When World War II erupted in 1939, the United States was still neutral, but the storm in Europe grew darker each month. German panzers rolled across Poland, France fell, and the skies over Britain turned to fire. American military planners watching the chaos realized they would need weapons that could handle anything: infantry, tanks, aircraft, or ships. The M2.50 caliber was one of those rare tools that fit every role. By the time America entered the war in 1941, the M2 was already being mounted on nearly every vehicle in production: Jeeps, half-tracks, Sherman tanks, B-17 bombers, P-47 Thunderbolts, all carried Browning's legacy. No other single weapon would see such diverse service. The .50 BMG cartridge itself was massive, each round weighing more than an entire M1 Garand clip. Armor-piercing bullets could punch through an inch of steel at 500 yards. Incendiary rounds could light aircraft tanks on fire. API rounds combined both effects, penetration and flame. The Germans first encountered the .50 caliber in North Africa. Rommel's Afrika Korps faced Allied convoys protected by M2s mounted on trucks and half-tracks. The effect was shocking. German infantry, used to facing rifle-caliber machine guns like the .303 or 7.92 millimeters, suddenly found themselves shredded by half-inch bullets that could rip through walls and even light armored vehicles. The first reports back to Berlin described a large-caliber automatic weapon that could destroy unarmored cars and tear men behind sandbags. American gunners quickly learned to respect its recoil, but love its dependability. In desert heat or freezing nights, Ma Deuce kept firing. Some tank crews would even use the heavy gun to cut down enemy snipers hidden behind stone ruins. Others mounted it on jeeps for mobile patrols. To the Germans, it became a dreaded sound, a deep, rhythmic pounding that meant death was near. In the skies, the M2's legend grew even faster. American engineers realized that aircraft-mounted versions could be synchronized or wing-mounted in large numbers. The B-17 Flying Fortress carried up to 13 of them. The P-47 Thunderbolt, P-51 Mustang, and B-25 Mitchell each relied on the same weapon in air battles and strafing runs. At full rate of fire, 6 wing-mounted M2s could throw more than 70 bullets per second. German pilots who once scoffed at American planes began to fear their withering streams of tracers. A burst from a P-47's 50s could slice a Messerschmitt in half. Luftwaffe ace Heinz Knoke later wrote that the 50 cal was murderous against aircraft, capable of cutting wings apart before a pilot could even react. The M2's impact was not only physical but psychological. Its distinctive crack echoed across battlefields. In Normandy, American infantry used it to suppress machine gun nests hidden in hedgerows. The Germans tried countering it with their own MG-42s, faster firing, yes, but much lighter in caliber. The MG-42's 7.92mm rounds shredded infantry but bounced off the armor that the M2 could punch through with ease. When American half-tracks with quad 50 mounts, called the M45 Maxim, rolled into battle, German troops often mistook them for anti-aircraft guns and ducked for cover. In truth, they could annihilate entire platoons with one sustained burst. Even German armor commanders noticed. In after-action reports, officers complained that the American heavy machine gun was too powerful to be treated as a mere infantry weapon. The Panzer divisions began ordering field modifications, adding extra armor plates to half-tracks and command vehicles. On the Eastern Front, Soviet soldiers envied the American gun's versatility. Their own DSHK 12.7mm was powerful but lacked the same reliability and production numbers. Behind the lines, American armorers kept perfecting the M2. The gun's barrels were machine-cut to handle tremendous heat and pressure. The recoil booster was fine-tuned to ensure smooth cycling. Gunners were trained to adjust headspace and timing, critical to prevent catastrophic failure. It was a mechanical symphony, simple but deadly. Even after thousands of rounds, Ma-Deuce rarely failed. By 1943, the Germans had fully learned to fear it. Field manuals warned infantry never to expose themselves to American large-caliber fire. The myth soon spread that the .50 BMG was banned by the Geneva Convention, that its destructive power was inhumane. The truth was simpler. It wasn't banned at all, but the devastation it caused was so complete that soldiers wished it were. As Allied bombers hammered the Reich, the M2's role grew beyond ground combat. Air crews nicknamed their 50s with affectionate names. Some called them Lucille, others Betty. The guns defended bombers from waves of German fighters. Each gunner on a B-17 had to control bursts, track targets, and manage jams mid-flight at -40 degrees Celsius. The M2's heavy slugs tore through the aluminum skins of Bf-109s and FW-190s with brutal efficiency. Entire German formations disintegrated under walls of 50 caliber fire. Luftwaffe command began to realize that no other air defense measure, not even armor plating, could reliably save their fighters. By war's end, the M2 Browning had fired its way into legend. Its design, largely unchanged since Browning's time, had proven itself across every environment, from the Pacific's jungles to the snows of the Ardennes. Soldiers trusted it more than any other gun. Germans, meanwhile, developed a deep respect and hatred for it, a weapon they could neither outgun nor outlast.
When the Allies invaded Europe in 1944, the M2 became a symbol of unstoppable force. Beach landings at Normandy saw rows of them mounted on landing craft, firing against German bunkers and aircraft. The sight of a .50 cal cutting through steel doors and concrete pillboxes left a mark on every soldier who witnessed it. German defenders described the weapon as terrifying, its rounds ripping through everything that moved. American troops used it not only as a defensive tool, but as an offensive one. Machine gunners like Corporal Arthur Bud Jorgensen became legends in their units, cutting down counterattacks from hundreds of meters away. The M2's adaptability was unmatched. On the ground, it served as both anti-aircraft and anti-vehicle defense. Mounted on the back of a Jeep, it could turn a small reconnaissance unit into a devastating mobile battery. Tank commanders used it to sweep rooftops, tree lines, and enemy foxholes. Engineers mounted it on amphibious craft, and sailors used it to fend off dive bombers. Every branch of the American military embraced it. To the Germans, the .50 caliber embodied the industrial might of the United States, a single gun that could destroy trucks, blast through stone walls, and down planes. The Wehrmacht tried countermeasures. They developed armor kits for half-tracks, used smoke screens to hide movements, and instructed infantry to engage only when within rifle range. Still, the .50 caliber dominated open battlefields. Its armor-piercing ammunition easily penetrated even lightly armored Panzer IV side plates. In aerial combat, the weapon's reputation grew darker. German pilots facing P-47 Thunderbolts or P-51 Mustangs learned to dread those long bursts of tracers. One pilot later recalled that when a burst hit, the cockpit filled with fire and fragments before you could even think. The .50 cal didn't just kill, it disintegrated. Airframe engineers discovered that no lightweight armor could resist it. Even the late-war Me-262 jet, fast as it was, could be shredded by a well-aimed burst from 6 Browning guns. As American bombers pushed deeper into Germany, M2s became their shield. Waist gunners, tail gunners, and top turret gunners formed an intricate web of overlapping fire. Each gun could fire 600 to 800 rounds per minute. In formation, a dozen bombers produced a literal wall of lead. Luftwaffe tactics had to change. They began attacking from high frontal angles, hoping to avoid the gunners' arcs. But even then, the .50s reached them. German engineers attempted to design armor-piercing ammunition capable of returning the favor, but by then, fuel shortages and Allied dominance left little room for experimentation. Meanwhile, on the ground, German infantry developed a grim respect for the gun's reach. In Normandy hedgerows, they could hear the deep thump of an M2 long before they saw it. The weapon's range extended beyond 2,000 meters, and its rounds maintained lethal velocity far beyond typical rifle distances. A soldier taking cover behind a stone wall could find it shattered in seconds. Some German units began spreading the myth that the Americans were using the 50 against personnel in violation of the Geneva Convention. The rumor gained traction because it helped morale. It was easier to believe the enemy was cheating than to face the truth of overwhelming firepower. Yet, in reality, there was no such ban. The M2 was a lawful weapon, designed for anti-material use, but fully authorized against infantry in practice. The destruction it caused was psychological as much as physical. In Italy and France, the weapon's reputation grew so terrifying that some Wehrmacht officers issued orders for immediate suppression of any M2 positions. Snipers targeted its crews relentlessly, often risking their lives to silence a single gun. But the Browning was hard to kill. It could be fired remotely, its mount reinforced with sandbags, and its gunners rotated to prevent fatigue. Then came the Ardennes. In the winter of 1944-45, as the Battle of the Bulge raged, the M2 again proved decisive. American positions under siege relied on their heavy machine guns to halt German infantry and light armor. The freezing cold made most weapons unreliable, but not the Browning. With proper lubrication and headspace adjustment, it fired without fail. German armored personnel carriers were ripped apart by half-inch bullets. In some engagements, M2s were used to engage Tiger tanks by targeting their vision slits and external equipment, forcing the crews to button up and lose visibility. After the war, captured German officers often spoke about the .50 caliber with a mix of fear and admiration. They called it the Black Thunder, a weapon that could dominate any engagement. Some even suggested that it had altered the very tactics of modern warfare. The MG-42 remained Germany's pride, a masterpiece of speed and simplicity, but it lacked the brew versatility of Mod Deuce. The Americans never replaced it with a 20mm cannon as other nations did. The reason was simple: weight, reliability, and logistics. A 20mm gun required heavier mountain ammunition, while the 50 offered a perfect balance of range, punch, and portability. Aircraft gunners could carry thousands of rounds without overloading their planes. Ground crews could repair it in the field. Its parts were interchangeable, its design modular. Every battlefield problem seemed to have a 50C solution. As the Cold War began, the M2 refused to fade away. In Korea, it dominated once again. Chinese and North Korean troops learned the same lesson the Germans had. The weapon's sheer stopping power turned charging infantry waves into chaos. On frozen hills, M2s mounted on tripods guarded perimeters through the night. American soldiers joked that Mod Deuce never slept.
By the time the Vietnam War erupted, the M2 had already been in service for more than 2 decades, yet it looked and functioned almost unchanged. Helicopters, armored personnel carriers, riverine boats, and base defenses all relied on it. The Viet Cong and North Vietnamese, like the Germans before them, came to fear its thunderous voice echoing through the jungle. The .50 BMG could cut through tree cover, disable trucks, and destroy bunkers. American patrols often carried M2s mounted on M113 APCs, turning ambushes into quick defeats for the enemy. Even as jet aircraft and missiles redefined warfare, the M2 refused to become obsolete. Engineers continued improving it: chrome-lined barrels for longevity, better ammunition types, and later, quick-change barrels on the M2A1 model. Ammunition evolved too: armor-piercing incendiary, tracer, and eventually multi-purpose rounds like the Raufoss Mark II-11, capable of punching through steel and igniting explosives. Modern versions are fitted with thermal optics, remote weapon stations, and shields to protect gunners. Yet the core mechanism remains Browning's 1920s design. No nation has managed to build a direct replacement that matches its simplicity, power, and reliability. From Humvees in Iraq to helicopters in Afghanistan, the same gun continues to fire nearly a century later. The Germans once saw it as a weapon of horror, something unnatural in its ability to dominate. Today, militaries worldwide see it as a benchmark, a standard of design perfection. Its sound, a slow, powerful beat, remains instantly recognizable on the battlefield. The M2 .50 caliber machine gun became more than a weapon. It became a symbol of American ingenuity and industrial endurance. From the frozen skies over Europe to the deserts of the Middle East, its lineage endures. It stands as proof that sometimes a truly great design doesn't need to be replaced, it simply needs to be maintained. For the soldiers who fired it, the gun was a lifeline. For the enemies who faced it, it was a nightmare. And for historians, it remains a mechanical masterpiece, a bridge between the industrial wars of the 20th century and the digital conflicts of the 21st century. That is why the Germans hated it. Not because it broke any laws of war, but because it shattered the illusion of safety. No trench, no vehicle, no distance was enough. Against the relentless hammering of the Browning M2, the only true defense was to stay unseen. Even now, when the weapon's thunder echoes from armored vehicles across the world, it carries the same message it did in 1943: power, precision, and inevitability. It is the sound of history's most enduring heavy machine gun, the weapon the enemy feared most, the gun that never stopped firing. If you've made it this far into the story of the Browning M2, thank you for watching. The history of this weapon isn't just about metal and mechanics. It's about the people who carried it, the engineers who built it, and the battles that shaped the modern world. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the hidden truth behind why the Germans feared the American .50 caliber, make sure to leave a like. It helps this channel reach more history lovers like you. Tell us in the comments which World War II weapon you'd like to see next, or share your favorite story involving the M2 Browning. Every comment, every suggestion helps us decide what to uncover in future episodes.
If you want more detailed cinematic documentaries like this one, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. We have more untold stories coming soon, from the secret missions that changed the war to the machines that defined a century of combat. Thank you again for spending your time with us. Until next time, stay curious, stay sharp, and keep history alive.